So we've been talking about exploiting people who are bet folding with raises. That's been kind of the theme of the series. This is the regular players in micro and small stakes games play a tag style. Tags rely on bet folding to make their money, basically. They are relying on you not bluffing them often enough so that they can bet and then fold to a raise and do so with confidence. So you exploit these players by figuring out when and in what situations they are planning to bet fold, and then by launching bluff raises at them. So this is something hopefully you've been trying out if you've been watching the first few videos. Again, simple examples are raising continuation bets. This is one that's very much a bread and butter play and almost has become passe, but it's still a staple of my poker game. Also, I raise turns when my opponents might be bet folding one pair of hands. Whenever you look at the board and you have someone that you know bet folds with, say, a top pair type hand, and you suspect that that might be what's going on based on the board cards, give them a raise and see what happens. Anyway, the thing is that often the hand doesn't end with our raise, or at least we're not going to assume that the hand ends with the raise. You raise and get called. And then the question is, what do you do next on the next street? So say you do raise the turn and you get called. Are you firing the river or not? Now, you should kind of have this in mind before you make the play in the first place. And the answer is not always the same. Obviously, sometimes you're going to fire the river. Sometimes you're not going to fire the river. And you do that. You mix it up like that for two reasons. One is because when you mix it up like that, you become, you become less exploitable. You know, the last thing you want is your opponent to be able to correctly predict what you're going to do on the next street before that street has come. That's a terrible thing to happen, to have your opponents be able to predict that sort of thing. So you do want to have a mixture of options in your game. The other reason is that some situations kind of call for a second barrel, and some don't. And it's important to understand which is which, and so forth. Furthermore, there's different bet sizing options. You know, that first raise or that final bet, you have options with how you want to size that. You can make a small initial raise, you can make a larger initial raise, and all these have important effects on how successful the play is going to be, and more importantly, obviously, is how profitable the play is going to be. So the bet sizing plays a large role in that. So I've kind of outlined 4 major bet sizing options here. These are the 4 I would say I probably use the most. There are other possible options. You know, you could raise big and bet small or whatever, but these are kind of the 4 that I use the most. So this is not to limit you to only these options, but this is just to say that here are 4 options. So option 1. So the scenario, remember, is that you are planning to raise a bet because you think a regular player is betting, planning to fold to a raise. For whatever reason, you think that that is likely in this situation, so you're raising to try to bluff, win the pot. So the first option is a small raise, planning to give up if called. So we're talking, by a small raise, I mean like a min raise or something a little bit more than a minimum raise. Someone bets 100, you make it 240, 230, 200, 220, something like that. That's a small raise, and then we're planning, if we get called, to give up. Next option is you make a big raise. So that would be, 100, you raise it to at least 300, 350, something in that range, or big, or an overbet, or an all-in, or whatever. But the idea is that you're making a big raise now, and then you are either all in. This is sort of the equivalent to giving up if called, is you can't fire another barrel. So we're making a big all-in raise here, and obviously not firing the next street, or we're making a big raise with money behind, and we're planning, if we get called, to give up. The next option is to make a small raise now. So again, a min raise or a small raise, and then planning, if called, to fire a big barrel on the next street. Maybe not on every single card, but on a lot of the cards. And then the final option, big raise now, big barrel on the next street.